Welcome to Fans of the Forge. Today's wrap-up is Season 5, Episode 27, Hollywood Edition. I'm Chris. To my left we have...
Yep, Sean.
And to my right we have...
Teresa.
And let's get right down to business. Our contestants for this episode were Brian. He was a part-time smith with 5 years experience. And his day job was he was a project manager for a financial firm. Tristan had part-time experience of 4 years. He was 19 years old at the time, worked in a pizza shop, and was studying to become a chef. Our next contestant was Mike, who had 12 years experience. He is a journeyman bladesmith and an elementary school teacher, a.k.a.
Badass
MFer right there. So, moving forward, the last contestant was Doug. He is a part-time bladesmith with 2 years experience, and he worked for the Department of Corrections of Arizona. So, let's get right down to the important thing here, our picks. All of us picked the badass Mike to win.
You gotta.
How do you not pick
He's
the
a journeyman.
Right.
He's proved himself to get to the next level of being a bladesmith, so you have to pick him, which we all did. And then, coincidentally, we all chose different underdogs for this episode. Sean chose Brian, I chose Tristan, and Teresa chose Doug. So
cool.
some good variation.
Some
Everybody's
variety.
represented.
Someone's going to get points.
Someone's getting points. And one of the first things we noticed was Ben Abbott's back.
All right.
It's been a while.
He had a little bit of scruff going, too. So
Yeah.
It was just funny that we were talking about him last episode because we were watching one from like the way back. And we're like, oh, Ben's there.
Yeah.
When's Ben coming back?
What happened to Ben?
He's back.
He's back. And during the intro, I've noticed that it seems like Jay Nielsen, he's got his thing.
Which isn't much.
Ben's got his thing, which isn't much. Doug has his.
Right.
And then Dave tries to do different things every time. And he just kind of give an awkward thumbs up.
He did a double thumb. Like,
Was it
his
double
other
thumb?
thumb was, like, hidden behind his name.
Oh,
like,
okay. I guess that's not
It's like a
as
cheesy
bad.
thumbs up. Like, yeah.
The whole episode was kind of...
movies.
Yeah, it was kind of feeding into the cheesiness of Hollywood.
He's done like a Fonzie. Like,
Hey.
That's what he should have done, right?
What?
Maybe, it might have been if it was his
Sean's
attempt at
Fonzie
it.
was better.
I didn't say it wasn't. Jeez, all right. Moving forward. God forbid I try to be the Fonz. All right, round one. Contestants had an 8-inch piece of W1 round stock, and they had to forge their versions of the Rambo survival knife. What a badass blade that is,
Yes.
right? That was a really cool-looking
cool.
knife. The specs for that one, they had to have between 12 and 15 inch long of their blade, and it had to be 2 inches wide at least, starting at the base. It had to have a clip point, decorative file work on the spine, and a through tang. Brian, he had a little bit of issue learning to get the welder going, but Mike gave him a little hand. The weld did not work very well because it broke right off. He had a lot of trouble keeping the billet in his tongs. He just dropped it all over the place, including into the oil bucket. And then he tried to go fishing with his tongs into the oil bucket.
Because it's hot.
And that didn't work. And then he was like, looked like he was just going to go in and grab the blade. And I was getting really nervous that he wasn't thinking he was just going to grab the hot blade out of the bottom, which he eventually ended up doing. So it must not have been that hot anymore. But you think that, you're always told that metal's hot even when it's black. So I guess the quench tank can really cool it down quite a bit.
But it was still hot. Like, he immediately went over to the water, and they're all...
He pulled it out as quick as he could.
Two things. I'd say, assuming that he grabbed the tang part, which probably wasn't in the forge as much as the rest of the blade.
Yep.
And it's in a tank. I don't know how long it was in there for, so hopefully it had cooled down enough. But he was kind of testing the oil for heat, but still not a great. I mean, he had no other option.
There was nothing to do.
Just leave it in there for 20 minutes. I don't think
he had
so.
to go in there, get it out, and then dip his hand off in the water to cool off.
No
afterwards.
burns.
No burns. Then Tristan, he worked on making an integral guard, which the judges were not so keen about his design. It wasn't the most thought out design when it comes to a guard. It was a little pointy, and then it would also cause issues with the handle size.
The handle probably it wouldn't have done much because there wasn't much guard there.
Right.
So he wedged it, pulled it out, but there wasn't much length to him. So
yeah. He had some issues. His tang was too long, so his overall blade length was going to be too long. He had to cut that. The guard was looking pretty thin at some point. He also used clay, which I had originally thought was going for a hamon on the blade, but it's probably still a hamon when you do that, but he was going more just to make it so that the spine of the blade was more flexible, not as brittle, and that's what he was using the clay for.
Well, that's kind of the purpose of a hamon.
Yeah, I guess that's the purpose, but there's also the visual aspect of a hamon.
You can make a visual pattern with it.
Right. But that's not what the point was here. He was going more for the flexibility. His first quench did not take very well, and then with 40 seconds left to the round, he went in for a second quench, and all the judges were just slapping their faces. And
what are you gonna do? Like, that's what you got to do. If it wasn't hard, you got to put it in try for a second quench.
Yeah. Mike, there's nothing really bad to say about it. He was a professional, and he went in there, and he went about his business, and he made a blade that was awesome. He did have a bit of a warp during the quench, but he bent it over his leg, and it fixed it. So,
like the badass that he is.
Just like,
all right.
I don't need to put it in between metal and tighten it in the anvil. I don't need to, stand on it. I don't need to do any special tricks with water. I'm just going to brute force this thing on my leg. And it worked. Doug, he didn't know how to weld. He was using tongs and kept dropping the billet. For a while, he was using an 8-pound hammer, which is huge for...
It didn't even look like he was like hitting it very hard with it.
It was, well, when you have that heavy of a hammer, it's difficult to control that much weight. So he
didn't look like he was really coming down with a lot of force. He was just kind of like...
Well, yeah, he wasn't hitting it. It didn't seem like he was hitting it hard, but an 8-pound hammer, even hitting with the speed that it was still moving metal, but he wasn't able to. He burnt himself out using the big hammer, and so the heat got to him, and he went to the grinder and decided to do more time grinding rather than becoming a heat casualty. And I don't know how I felt about that. I guess he did forge a little bit before he went to the grinder, but I know if Jay Nielsen was there, he would have said, "This is forged in fire, not ground in fire."
Well, he had to forge that thing to enough shape initially, so he had to draw that billet out, the bar out to make a billet, and then go to the grinder. So, yeah, he might have done a lot of grinding, but it wasn't like he started from nothing and didn't do any work to it.
It's true. He did. He was very cognizant of trying to make sure he met all the parameters, and he did do one thing when he was going to do his heat treating. He actually took 2 pieces of angle iron and put them in a vise and had them prepped, ready to go in case he had warps, which, hey, it's not a bad idea. Yeah. It's a good idea. So it came down to judging, and we came across a first for the show.
The very first
time they walk up, and there are 2 blades sitting on the judge's table, Tristan and Doug, and they both did not meet parameters. Tristan's was a little too short. His was only 10 5/8 inches long, and Doug's was 1 7/8 inches wide. He was off by 1/8 of an inch on his width of the blade.
For being so particular about parameters.
So
by 1/8 of an inch.
1/8 of an inch.
Well, if you got a pocket tape measure, might as well use it.
Yeah.
And they used it.
He didn't. Oh, I see what you mean.
He used it. He had it out.
Yeah.
He being Dave.
Dave Baker.
Dave, yes.
Because if Doug had the pocket tape measure, he wouldn't have been short.
No.
Right. So, because of this, they did sudden death strength test, where Dave took both of the knives over to a industrial strength sized nut and batoned them onto the nut 3 times and then looked at the edge to see who sustained the most damage. Tristan made it through with very minor damage, a little bit of surface scuffing maybe, a little bit of a minor deformation. Doug's first 2 looked okay, but on the 3rd hit, a piece broke off. He left a little chip of his blade in the nut. And so because of this, Doug got the boot, which means who had Doug as the underdog?
I think it was me.
Yeah, Teresa's underdog was gone.
Underdog out.
I mean, I would say, man, Doug's blade went so deep into that nut, it left a piece in there.
So sharp.
Maybe it was so sharp it cut.
But it was a strength test.
Cut into that that thing.
That is a good point. It was a strength test.
Well, he was strong enough to cut into that nut. But since it's your underdog pick, I don't care. You get no 2 points this time.
What are you going to do? Round 2, where they add the handles, and they also need to add a guard and a pommel.
Mm-hmm.
So Doug is eating popcorn while the guys work, just like chilling, and Will was the playground bully that just knocked it out of his hands.
Dave's like,
wow.
Did you bring it up for everyone? He's like, well, I just got this on a concession stand. And Will goes over, wham!
Boom, just flies.
Popcorn everywhere.
So
they're really loose in this episode.
yeah,
It's
they're
I
really
like
having
it.
fun. They're having a good time.
Yeah, it's good.
I Instagrammed it last night, and I put that up, and I put a little thing of Stephanie Tanner saying, "How rude."
Yes.
Can I say who you put first?
I originally, yes, who did I put first?
Michelle Tanner.
I knew it was Full House. I knew it was
Oh.
Full House.
wrong-
Yeah,
Tanner.
no, it's easy to.
Yeah, I know.
And then-
It's very popular.
Wasn't a
Anyway,
good
I
show.
posted that up. I got a message from somebody on Instagram. One word, idiot. And I replied back and I go, am I the idiot or is Will the idiot? And then the guy went off on a whole tangent about how Will's disrespectful. I'm like, it had to have been partially planned, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a joke. So anyway,
Like, Doug just went up and got himself popcorn out of the blue for real.
and didn't have access
Oh, I'm
to
just
more.
going to sit here with my popcorn and just eat it in front of everyone and not expect any repartee whatsoever.
All right.
Idiot. How wooed.
So, Brian decided to work on the edge geometry before the handle. And then when he did eventually get to the handle, he'd grabbed this giant piece of brass for the guard. And I had a really hard time wrapping my head around how that size and where he was putting the hole was supposed to be a guard. It was like this thick.
yeah, it was pretty big.
Yeah. And he had a lot of trouble with it, so he ended up switching to G10. After an hour and a half, he used half of his time dealing with this giant brass thing that he didn't
Which is
use.
really weird. Like, he used a couple different methods to try to get through it.
It just,
And it just wasn't happening. And then I think Baker was like, why don't you just drill a bigger hole in it?
But
It would have
also-
fit, and then you squished it. If you squished it on, then it would have been fine.
but he had it like this, and he was drilling down into it. I feel like if it was this way, it just would have worked.
I don't know what he
better.
was up to.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
who knows?
bladesmith.
We
so-
weren't in his head.
Yeah.
Freaking Brian.
So then Tristan drills a large round hole, takes like a giant drill bit, and keys the top to keep the blade from spinning. So he made this move that the judges are like, "What are you doing?" But then he put the little notch on the top to kind of save it.
Yeah, because
Okay.
even the tang was rounded off. Like, he's like intentionally done that. So
And then a comment was made that there are a lot of pointy bits on Tristan's knife, which
yeah, because he also had like his like pommel. He went for like a spade shape or something like
You
that.
said it was a tear shape, a teardrop.
Yeah,
but
like
it was a
teardrop.
sharp
It
teardrop.
was
Yeah.
huge and pointy and just, like,
in both directions.
Yeah,
Not
everywhere.
just forward, but aiming back at the person wielding the knife.
So then we get to Mike. He drills a super long hole through the handle and then shapes it to match the shape of the tapered tang. Good idea. And all good things were said about him again. He was really paying attention to the details. So then we get to the judging, where David Baker claims to be the superhero and all the other judges and hosts are the inept villains.
Yeah.
And so when he goes to do the strength test, which is a man killer spike chop, the judges put on 3D glasses as their safety glasses.
Haha.
Those were not OSHA approved 3D glasses. Just saying. Just saying.
So Mike goes first. He smashes through 5 spikes. At least we were trying to keep count of the spikes.
Mm-hmm.
Mike got through 5, indexes beautifully, and there's not a mark on it. Tristan also got through 5, small deformity in the edge. The pommel spun, and it was a little bit stabby for Dave Baker. And then Brian gets up there. That's not right. Not a through tang with a pommel. It's a hidden tang and a frame handle, which did not meet the parameters. Therefore, Brian got the boot. Chris is getting points.
First time in weeks.
About
He was
time.
so excited to be like, oh, I get to say it. I'm getting points.
Getting points.
All right. So, moving on to round 3. Our contestants have to make a katana sword, and they show a 1,000-layer katana sword. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Mhm.
So they go over it. Hattori Hanzo is the most famous samurai to ever live. So the sword's based on his work. It's from about 400 years ago. He's portrayed as a legendary bladesmith in Kill Bill and created a katana so fine it would cut God.
Mm-hmm.
It's majestic, symbol of the samurai, single-edged blade designed for precise cuts and lightning-fast thrusts.
When they put this in the description of the episode like a week or two ago, and it popped up on the DVR, and I saw that it was going to be the Hanzo sword from Kill Bill, I was like, that's my jam.
Yeah.
I love that freaking movie. And I was waiting. Just after I saw the description, I couldn't wait to watch the episode.
I've never seen the movie.
Are you freaking kidding me?
Neither have I.
Oh, Jesus.
And we own it.
I own it. I
You
own
haven't
both of
watched
them.
it since we got married.
Well, maybe we need to have a viewing party for
I
Kill
don't think it's
Bill.
necessary. We've seen the sword now.
No, that's not about the sword.
It's about the sword.
Move on.
All right, so the specifications are must include a habaki, a tsuba, a suka handle between 11 and 12 inches, and a handle must be wrapped. Oh, and by the way, it has to be 1,000-layer Damascus. So not just like a typical...
And it's noted that 300 is impressive.
Right.
Now it's 1,000.
Well, even said like 300 layers is impressive, but this needs to be 1,000 layers. And I'm thinking, holy crap, I've never heard of that. This is going to be intense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's quite a feat.
So, Mike, his day 1, he's working on his Damascus billet. 620 layers at the end of the day. Pretty good. Day 2, it's heat treat. Puts 2 forges together because it's so long of a blade. There's warps and bends in 2 places. He goes for a second quench. There's a slight warp that he can grind out.
Mm-hmm.
And then on day 4, his blade's good. He's making handle parts, and he wraps the handle in stingray skin and Ito cord. So I'm watching this show, and I'm like, if I was on there, I have no craft skills whatsoever. What if I had to wrap this handle? Would I be able to? Would I be able to look it up online, like, oh yeah, this is how you do it, because there's that
YouTube
pattern
and
in there.
the
Yeah,
time-
you can look it up. You're allowed to
Well,
research.
no, not that I could, but like, would I be able to pull it off just by looking at references online?
I think you probably
Yeah, I think you
could.
could.
I don't think it was that difficult of a rap to do that.
Okay.
I think it was pretty straightforward.
All right. Then I'm ready to
I mean,
go on the
Tristan,
You
you'll
should-
get to it.
show. Well, yeah, so Tristan, his day 1, he starts with Damascus. It does not have power tools, and he has 42 layers after day 1, which is crazy that he has to do this without power tools. So
yeah.
tough start.
Yeah.
Day 3, his blade's looking kind of lean, so he adds some mild steel to make a sanmai. Heat treats with charcoal. Yeah, we're not sure what he was using for a quench tank. It looked like a tiny, like, floaty boat. Because it wasn't a kiddie pool, like, because you're not shaped like it was like a long.
Either that or maybe like a plastic like sled, but
But it had a drain like boats do.
yeah, it looked more like a boat, like
Okay.
a little plastic boat.
Interesting. Came out straight and hard.
Yay.
That's
On
what
day
she
5. Yeah, why not? Day 5, he's working on the handle, and he's also using stingray skin and decides to use shoelaces for his wrap.
Yes.
Because they just feel good, they work, and it's the best material. So he went with it. So we go to judging, and I guess the note here is that Mike's looks a little bit better.
Started noting which ones look better.
And Journeyman Smith came in with a better looking sword compared to the young kid, so it's not surprising.
So we move on to the kill test with a crazy
That's
88.
a character from Kill Bill.
Crazy
Oh, it is?
88
Oh.
is a gang in Kill Bill.
Oh, okay. So I know it had
It was
like a little
Lost on Me,
mask
too.
on and everything. So
And he was saying Crazy 8 Man. I'm like,
oh, okay. So Doug goes and puts on these sunglasses. And we have some really good Doug cam in this.
Oh, it's fantastic.
He just does a straight look to the camera. And it's kind of interesting.
Especially on like the final stab back. It just zooms in on his face.
So Mike goes first, cut the head off, razor sharp edge. There's some bone on the edge of the blade, but the blade is in perfect shape. Edge did not roll, and it stayed true. Move on to Tristan, cuts the head. It falls off at the end of the test. After it's completed, very good balance. It's light, it's fast, and the blade took a bend, and the edge just sustained some chipping. Moving on to the sharpness test. They have to cut through 3 tatami mats, but doing 5 cuts. Mike, he cut through the thickest, but not on the backhand cut. Tristan, same as Mike, failed on a backhand cut, but it took more of a bend this time. So Mike wins, and it was determined that Tristan's could not be tested any further because of the bend.
Yep.
So, points.
We all got points. We all got a point here. So whatever our numbers are, we didn't calculate them, but
Well, you
it's
just
all
add
one
one.
from last time.
So 32, 20.
Hey,
18.
All right.
Woohoo! So that was the episode, season 5, episode 27, Hollywood edition. I did note that on the Facebook discussion group for this, a lot of people were like, "Do you think they'll continue to do things like this, like come out with some
Like specialty episodes?
specialty episodes about fictional swords?"
Oh, like
Which-
fantasy ones.
Yeah, which like fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that could be a really cool way to continue doing something like that. And especially, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of cool swords and stuff still, but going on the number of episodes that they've hit a lot of weapons. So if they start to delve into it, I wouldn't complain. I like the idea of doing some of
I
those
wouldn't
more
be
fictional
surprised.
ones.
Yeah.
So that being said, that was the episode. Next week, actually 1 week from right now, as of recording,
yeah.
Sean and I will be driving down to Tennessee.
Pigeon Forge.
Pigeon Forge Grudge Match is happening next weekend. So we'll be there.
We're going to be loaded up with some hot sauce.
We'll have some hot sauce a little bit. We'll have, cameras and stuff to like take videos and talk to people. We got a little bit of an interview schedule going on. It should be a fun event. Hopefully the weather's looking good. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
If you're in the Tennessee Pigeon Forge area,
Come on
check
down.
it out.
Check it out. Open to the public.
Yeah, exactly. Come buy some knives and all that good stuff. And yeah, so that's the episode. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you.
Follow us on YouTube,
Oh, yeah.
Facebook.
Subscribe.
Subscribe. Instagram.
All that stuff.
Fans of the Forge.
Yes.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Is that really necessary?
You gotta do the
I did it.
The moose ears.
Oh, thanks. And everybody just mean mug the camera for a second. Well, that's not, again, it's just going to be the thumbnail of us like staring at it with Doug behind us. All right, that's it. We're done.
Thumbs down. Thumbs down.